Lexus just announced the new LX700, which I have been calling the Rolex of the Lexus lineup. So in this video, it reminded me to do a quick overview of some of my favorite things about the LX lineup. And if you stay to the end of the video, I'll explain why I call it the Rolex. Before I get into it, make sure you hit like and subscribe for more Lexus related content. Okay, so let's talk about the LX700, which already is adding to a very luxurious and very high number, LX600. And I think it's the first 7 that I've seen in the Canadian market. And here I have just a little bit of detail. So as you might have guessed, the 700 is an upgrade mostly to the powertrain, but it introduced a few new packages. Currently in the LX600, we have a twin turbo 3.4 liter V6. The LX700 is adding a hybrid drive to the similar powertrain. So yes, this will be the first LX hybrid in this market. And if I know Lexus and what they've been doing, that also is going to come with a big increase in power as well as fuel economy. But more interesting enough is on this sheet of paper that I have in front of me. And this is the part that surprised me. Lexus not only is changing the powertrain, but also we're seeing some packages that have never been featured or in my opinion even thought of on the LX. And those are Overtrail. So if you already know Overtrail and you've seen it probably on the new GX, Overtrail adds an off-road aspect to the SUV. And I know at first you might think, why is Lexus doing that to an SUV that's sort of like the VIP, city luxurious SUV? And it makes sense because enthusiasts for many years have taken vehicles like the LX, the GX, the Land Cruiser, and at some point in that vehicle's life, turn them into these amazing overlandish road trip off-road vehicles that have a good blend of luxury and usability for things like off-road. So even though I've always looked at the LX as like an executive style SUV, I'll never forget driving up in Muskoka a number of years ago, and there's these guys off-roading with some 4Runners and some Tacomas, and I'll never forget, out of the corner of my eye, seeing an LX with a ladder and a roof rack on it, being like, whoa, that guy took this luxury SUV and made it like an off-road monster. So that's what the Overtrail does, is we see things like 18-inch all-terrain wheels with a big tire, and I haven't seen it in person yet, but I'm sure it's going to be similar to that unique tire on the GX that offers comfort in the city, maybe a little sacrifice of fuel economy, but then that usability in the off-road section too. So there's going to be an Overtrail Plus 2-row and an Overtrail Plus 3-row. And what those mean is it's not just the Overtrail base that we saw on the GX, it still has the amenities of a flagship SUV like the LX. So things like massaging seats, things like a nice interior dash with features like illuminated door or scuff plates, a button you can press to park your car. So imagine this, an off-road rugged SUV where you don't have to sacrifice some really high-end amenities, which is really cool. It's like I would compare this to like an adventure hotel. Like one of those luxury hotels that offer skydiving and hiking, but also has a spa because of the massaging seats and because of those luxurious interior. And then, you guessed it, there is the 3-row option. So there is an Overtrail 3-row. Usually the difference between the two is that the Overtrail 2-row is gonna have some more cargo space because of those seats don't have to tuck into the floor. The 3-row, those seats will fold down and you'll lose a little bit of height, but it won't be the end of the world if you wanna use them. And then, you guessed it, the top of the line, Executive VIP. So just like in past Executive VIP models, and actually I just saw something here. Huh, yeah, that's kind of nice. Also, like other VIP models, this is usually a 4-seater. So we have 2 in the front, 2 in the back, a center console, some screens. That is the very luxurious VIP type car. So that's when usually you see the owner sitting in the back seat. And that one in particular, if I owned it, I would love to sit in the back seat because of the amenities. The one beside me, however, is the F Sport, and I wanted to highlight a few of my favorite things about this. One of them is the fact, look at all this piano black. For so many years, brands like Lexus didn't incorporate piano black into their design language. In fact, they still use things like chrome and at best maybe some dark chrome. But with this F-Sport grille, we have some actual, black spindle, some actual black trim along the outside. And in something like the white, it does a very good job. In the past, I've always reviewed this car in the F-Sport with the black exterior, and the white sort of panda look really highlights the contrast between those two colors. I've also always appreciated the boxiness of the hood. Now, parking one of these beside a GX, it makes it look a little small because of how the flow sort of works. But under the hood, even though it looks a little bit smaller, we still have a lot of that room taken up by that twin turbo V6. And the thing I like about this V6 is, even though I was such a fan of that V8 that we used for many, many years, and the V8 that's in things like my 2014 LS, this V6 did an exceptional job of offering higher RPM horsepower with a very smooth ride. And I thank Lexus for the build quality on that. And speaking of build quality, by the way, no one can argue that the feeling of the doors on the LX are superior to almost everything in the lineup. This is where we start to see that flagship-esque type characteristics come to life. Now, Lexus is a brand that does a great job in all of their vehicles for things like craftsmanship and materials and stuff like that. So sometimes, on a brochure, it might be hard to justify a flagship like the LX or the LS or arguably the GX, but then you start to pay attention to things like that. Even when I tap, you barely hear that hollow sound. It feels like a reinforced steel instead of a tin can. And the doors themselves, even the weight behind them, showcase that as well. Now, some of these packages have the soft close, so you won't really be slamming it like I just did. However, you'll still be able to feel the weight of it when you open it up. Now, is the LX for anybody? The answer is no. There's definitely a segment of people that would prefer the LX over the TX, which is beside me here, but equally, probably even more people might fit the TX. And the reason is simple. It's what is behind those rear seats. So both of these vehicles is a third row SUV. However, the TX offers a really ample space behind that third row and a really ample height so that you can have a family of, let's say, 6 in there and 6 pieces of luggage for that road trip, or even 7 if you really wanted to jam them in there. So for families, the TX could probably be a better fit. However, the LX offers something different. The inside is a little bit more luxurious. However, it really shrinks down. Like, I just have the one seat up right now, and you can see the trunk space is about yay big. So not for young kids in the luggage, but perhaps maybe a family of adults that don't need that extra trunk space or are okay with just the 2 rows for most of the time. Okay, so the interior is also where this vehicle really stands out. Not only is the seating position quite upright and truck-like, I guess you can say, also it has a screen that's not offered in any other Lexus. I don't know what it's called. I'm gonna call it the utility screen. And it gives you things like, so some simple things like changing the colors of the ambient lighting, but also seeing things like tilt angle and what is it called, yaw and things like that, where you can see some off-road features. And also, it reminds me that this has one of my favorite features, which is the hydraulic suspension. That's right, it's got hydros, meaning we can lower it, raise it, and also it's got the advanced system where it might do that automatically just a little bit when driving on the highway and things like that. So I really like the over-engineering that it offers just when hitting those buttons of up and down. It does have some other off-road gear, even in this F-Sport, where you can lock the center differential. You can put it in some different multi-terrain selects, and that gives you some angles and some of the stuff that we see on the GX, which is a more well-known off-road machine, but still incorporating those into the F-Sport model, which is definitely more designed for the city and a little sprinkle of off-road perhaps. Also, the center console itself is just massive. Reminds me of being in one of those Hummers back in the day, where it's almost the size of another seat, and that really highlights how wide this LX really is. the center opens from both sides, which makes it really useful. And this particular one has the cool box. Not cool because of I like it, cool because of it cools down any drinks that you have in there. I always call it the champagne cooler because I always feel like if you are driving this vehicle, you should have some champagne on hand. Not while you're driving though, obviously. So the LX in terms of quality and craftsmanship in the interior is a step up, even though, you know, the screen is, that top screen is that same system that we see in the whole lineup right now. Having the extra screen as well as some of those features that aren't offered in anything but a flagship like the LX and the LS. The only thing that also really sounds the same is the beep. It was beeping a little bit when I first got in here and it sounded just like any other Lexus. I thought that'd be cool if they had it where, you know, it was a different beep or a higher quality beep, I guess you could say. And speaking of higher quality, unique materials, the brushed aluminum in here is so trippy because when you look at it, you're expecting to be touching like something industrial almost. It's like artwork where it looks like each line has been grinded into it with a grinder, like some industrial art. And then you get up close and you can even see the brush marks and realize, no, it's just built that way. It's just super smooth. So sitting in the back, I start to realize that even in this F-Sport, if I owned it, I wouldn't mind sitting back here every single day. I don't have a panel roof. In fact, none of the LXs that we have currently do. However, I do have a very comfortable seating position. I have amenities like heated and cooled seats and some display and customization for things like climate control. And, you know, a door that is solid and has curtains built in, manual, albeit, and just overall a luxurious experience. And that's why when I compare this to something like the TX does a really good job at getting a family somewhere or one of those family road trips. This one feels like the executive SUV, where you can use it for a family, absolutely, as long as you don't need that trunk space behind the third row. But it's more built for, you know, a step up into luxury. Driving that executive around, going to a business meeting, or simply just having the flagship of the SUVs, sacrificing maybe a little bit of utility because of the extra space in something like the TX, and having obviously a little bit more things like horsepower and not air ride, but hydraulics and stuff like that. So let's answer the question, why does Dustin call this the Rolex of the Lexus lineup? And the reason is this. I probably can't sell you this one, even though I have two in stock, because the LX is sort of reserved for guests that have bought a few Lexus from us, live locally, and just like buying a Rolex Submariner where you have to usually get on a waiting list, maybe have some purchase history, etc. That's where the LX really lies in the lineup. And it's not to discriminate. That's the tricky part. It's not to pick and choose or anything like that. The truth of the matter is in the Canadian market, so many of these get bought and shipped overseas. And the point of our business and the point of Lexus as a company is to sell and have the cars here in our market so that families can enjoy it, so that, you know, someone who's saved up and is ready for their first big executive SUV can keep them here. So because of that, there are some strict rules with the LX, and the LX700 is going to be no different, where it's reserved for people that have done business, live locally. But the good news is there's becoming more and more of these. So even if I can't sell you one, perhaps your local dealer can, and you can finally get your Rolex of the Lexus lineup. I wonder what color it's going to be. I'm Dustin Mason. Thank you for watching this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and maybe just one day I'll be able to film a overtrail Lexus LX700. That even sounds weird to say, but I am pretty excited about it. I'll see you in the next video.